presentation of collaborative works created by Lisa Renee and Lauren Ashley Small that they've created throughout the spring semester as a part of their graduate level 2 course led by Laura Morton. My name is Claire Grace Watson, for any of these who don't know, and as a member of the inaugural class of Belhaven's Masters of Fine Arts in Dance program, I completed this course along with 2 additional choreography courses before beginning my current thesis research. The Master of Fine Arts, MFA, is a 3-year terminal degree program, meaning its participants are awarded the highest creative degree in the field of dance. Belhaven University's MFA program emphasizes scholarly research and performance alongside choreography. A thesis component consisting of research within these areas of study is required before completion of the degree. Please turn to the back of your program for more information on my upcoming thesis concert on January 30th of next year. And I hope to see you all there, and plus many more, so tell your friends. Take a moment to silence your cell phones. No photography or videography will be permitted during the show. And a choreographic talkback with the choreographers and collaborators will take place after the performance. Please enjoy the show.
Wow, the artist is creating How many teenagers do you know that are actively pursuing a life with God? For most of us, that game doesn't last very long. Like a banging on a gong, the preachers say, "What's wrong with kids today?" And the song goes on and on and on. But the song being sung is partly true. We're surrounded by a generation who, for the most part, would rather smoke a joint than sit in a pew. And to be honest, I'm really tired of placing all the blame on them. So I'm here to suggest that perhaps part of the problem, church, is you. Please hear me out. You see, teenagers today, and people for that matter, would rather live by their own luck, because they see the religious system as just way too stuck. And if you heard me say that I read my Bible every day, you'd be like, "What the fudge?" Doesn't that mean you're quick to judge, never budge, and just a plain old schmuck? And if this is the perception that we're so full of pride, then perhaps it's time we took a look inside and tried to reclaim the part of Jesus that some of us have lost. The one who partied with sinners, touched the lepers, loved the children, and who paid the highest cost. Have you ever considered just how many parties Jesus went to in the Gospels? If someone wanted to throw a party today, church, I'm not sure that they would hire us. People don't want to gather around Jesus anymore. They gather around Lady Gaga and Miley Cyrus. And I'm not here to bash secular music either. I'm tired of that. And plus, I like some of those songs. I'm here to suggest, church, that we also might be in the wrong. Please hear me out. You see, it's clear in the lives of the next generation, the church rarely plays a part. And maybe that's because some of the messages in TV and film and radio are a little bit more from the heart. The church shouldn't be this billboard of propaganda, a list of shoulds and should nots. It should be a living, breathing art piece where people see us and they say, "I want what they've got." When did the movement of Jesus lose its authenticity and require its members to climb to some spiritual peak? Because if only the strong survive, then how come his power is perfect when we're weak? Now please hear me. I know some churches do this right. And I'm not trying to start a fight. I'm here to suggest that we might just be as blind as those to whom we're trying to give sight. We as the church need to wisen up, because the next generation is rising up and they're finding their prize in the things of this world, because in their eyes we haven't given them a better option. Running away from the church like a toxin, because some of us are locked into a system of judgment and dismay. Hate you if you're struggling, different, or gay. Why would anyone want to stay when they're just viewed as a project on which we can project a list of rules? And the more we try and protect the children in this way, the more we reject what God is trying to project through them. And that is his project of authentic love. Please hear me out. You made it this far. I'm not trying to be harsh. And I'm not trying to be condemning to either side. I'm suggesting that instead of forcing people onto some religious journey, let's just invite them along for the ride. Let's look to share before we look to teach. And maybe let's put a little more care into what we preach. Let us make faith in Jesus a little more attractive. And by that, I'm not talking about hip or cool. I'm talking about interactive. Because you can never underestimate the power of someone who truly cares and who dares to be the one person who will listen when no one else will. This is the kind of love that I believe Jesus was talking about. That authentic love that spurs us to a life that people can't help but be attracted to. Church, let us begin to live in that love. And let us stop blaming the younger generation for every problem in the world, and instead come alongside them and invite them on an adventure that Jesus said would bring even greater things yet to come. This is authentic love.
delightful piece they're going to play this evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, 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 your attention, please, attention, please, attention, please.
And now the moment we've been waiting for is here.
I have something to tell you.
Hey, set off, set off. 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 Whatever will be, will be.
I believe in the future. I believe in the future. I don't believe in the past.
Can it be true? It must be true. No doubt. No doubt. Life is going on as normally as ever. But suddenly something seems to have happened. Suddenly something seems to have happened. Everybody seems to be staring in one direction. People seem to be frightened, even terrified. I want everybody to understand this.
I don't understand.
I don't understand.
There are a lot of things we don't understand. I don't understand. We need answers from you. What did you expect to find? What did you expect to
There's
find?
gonna be a future.
It's your responsibility to do something about it.
Well, I have the key in my hand. All I have to find is the lock. The lock. The lock. The lock.
It's only that I do what I love, and love what I do. Can't help the mad desire that's deep inside of you. You realize the fault isn't mine, that you are to blame. You want what you can't have, and you're all the same.
Yes.
Yeah, I would just like to hear from both of you, what was your intent for this collaboration? Because I don't really know much about them all, so.
Yeah, they can talk a little bit about, yeah.
Well, my collaboration with, her name's Judy Bigham. She's a good friend of mine from church, and a lot of the times that we get together, we discuss a lot of just spiritual concepts and biblical concepts and things, and that totally fed its way into our collaboration. What it started as was we were just brainstorming, and then the Lord put an image within me, and it included Judy. And it originated with Judy in the work, in the piece. And that was kind of our starting point. I brought the image up to her, and she's like, let's do it. And I said, okay. And as we were talking about the concepts that very much came from her life, from her personal experience, because she is 75 years old now, and she has talked to me a lot about the struggles, the negativity that so easily hones in over her as a person. And so having said that, all of those little conversations here and here, again, fed into the collaboration. The more that we talked, the more images she actually received in her mind as well, from that we both believe is from the Lord. A lot of her visual artwork has been very private. It's been very personal. It's been for her family, and her father was an architect. Her mother danced with Martha Graham. So all of it has just kind of fed in with her, and it's been a portion of her life. And this was the first piece that she said the Lord like flashed it in front of her face. And he's like, do it. And she's like, okay. And so that was the start of this collaboration. For the fact that we both had our images, and from those images we discussed the concepts, and we discussed how they fed into one another while working completely separate within our mediums. She came to a couple of rehearsals with us in the studio just so she could grasp what it is that I do and how I work and what this choreography might actually look like. And then she and I both parted our ways, and we continued to talk about this, all of the different nooks and crannies within these concepts, but we continued to just make it on our own, and then all of a sudden we're like, all right, I'm done, and we showed each other. And so it was more of a concept collaboration that produced two works.
I'm Lauren, and the last piece that you saw was mine. I came into the process of this piece just because we were required to do a collaboration class, and I knew immediately that I wanted to collaborate with Andre. We've done collaborations on music for pieces in the past, but nothing with film. And I don't know if you want to say your background.
Well, I actually attended Bellhaven a few years ago, and I did take a dance for camera class, so I'm connected here. But I'm finishing up with a degree in film back in New Orleans, so that's a little bit of my background.
And for the piece, I knew that I was interested in doing a piece that in somehow was related or about women, and so we were reading a lot of literature, and actually through the process, we pretty much collaborated on everything, just bouncing ideas back and forth with one another, and communicating via Facebook or email or text or call. And when I mentioned it to him, I think there was a connection between the way that women are portrayed in film, so there was a lot of material to pull from there. And that's kind of how the piece started. Of course, it changed over the semester, but that's kind of how our collaboration began.
each have really interesting lighting choices in your works, and I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about how you determined to make those choices and kind of what that did to the work for you.
Okay. For mine, I knew that I wanted to emphasize the placement of the chairs and the people going back and forth between being audience members or observers and watchers. So the lights, that was the main thing that I wanted to emphasize with the lighting, was those chairs and their placement, and then that in relation to the film. Just as a way to hopefully bring your eyes back on the film as well as the dance. That was the biggest thing, and then also an emphasis on the diagonal that they were using throughout for the women's section as well as the men's section, and later everyone together, and the representation of that diagonal, it just kept going back in the lighting as well.
With the way that I choreograph lately, a lot of it has started with a floor structure, or the movement has been based upon a floor structure. So my lighting choices were somewhat based around that as to where I wanted your focus to be. Especially because within Starting Point, you kind of get this idea of a journey. I wanted the audience's eye to also go on a journey in and out of the different areas on top of the stage. And also just for emphasis. So if there's a specific moment that you need to see as audience members, I really tried to highlight those parts.
I would like to know, this probably can only be addressed right now since Judy's not here, to Lauren and Andre. How was the balance of creativity established between the choreographer and the artist? How were you able to establish creativity equally, if you will, in this collaborative work?
I can go first. So for me, in my mind, originally I wanted to be like a 50-50 collaboration, and it started that way and pretty much was for the most of the project. And then I would say probably in the last couple weeks, maybe it might have morphed into like a 60-40 or something like that. But because he's in Louisiana and obviously I'm here, there was a bit of distance, and there's also the issue of just when can we see the film, or when can we play the film with the projector, when can the dance and the film actually come together. And it took a while for that to happen. The dancers can kind of speak for that, that there was only such amount of time where we could get the film and the dance together, whether it was being able to use the full space or the projector, or just having the version of the film ready that we needed. But I think for the most part, we pretty much always
Anybody else have questions? I have questions. So. It's not a burning question? Okay, I'll ask another one. Those of us that are in undergrad also taking choreography classes, we have a particular choreographic process, usually. We have a certain way that we approach our work. So my question to you in this process, how was the collaborative process influence your way of working? Did it change it because you were dealing with another artist, another view, another perspective, vision for the work, or how did it influence or change your personal choreographic process? Or maybe it didn't, I don't know.
For me, it actually refined it.
Okay.
Being able to verbally articulate my thoughts, and just, I talk very circularly a lot of times, and so Judy and I, we have that in common. So it was really great to just be able to hash out all of the thoughts, all of the, this, that, and the next thing. And just it allowed me to clarify, this is an emotion I want to emphasize. This is an action that I want to emphasize. This is important. This, I guess, we don't need as much. And again, just that verbal communication of laying it out as well as putting it on the dancers and watching videos. It also allowed me to refine my work because just allowing to watch, or for Judy to watch the piece just, I think, once or twice in its process, she was able to give me feedback, this works, this, I'm not sure if I understand this, and vice versa. We were able to get, because she had a couple of different, she did a couple visual art pieces in order to turn up into this one.
I would say my choreographic process was probably changed most because I really like to work alone for the most part. So when you have a requirement to collaborate with someone, it just opens up your eyes to new things. Like, I feel like you probably had a lot of ideas for the piece that I would never have thought of, just coming from the cinematography background, because I don't know much about those things. So I realized that it's nice to have other people's opinions, and it's nice to get feedback on your work. Sometimes, even when you might feel like, oh, I don't need it, I could do this on my own, it was nice to have other people involved.
So how were you able to establish like a common vocabulary between the two disciplines to help gain this fruitful venture of collaborative work? How was that established?
I think because the collaboration itself started at the same place, that we both had this conceptual idea that matched one another, that allowed that to be our rock, almost, our starting point. And from there, both of us just kind of went. We actually used improvisation in both of our disciplines. This was something that she didn't map out at all, but she had the image that the Lord put within her and the feedback from the previous works. And then she took these little, like the image of a heartbeat and different colors representing different things to formulate this walk, this journey that she personally has gone through. And I work in a very similar way. I have my point of emphasis, and then I put movement to it to have it make sense. And so because we had that in common, it continued to just flush out.
Yeah, for Lisa, a lot of her choreographic process was she would map things out. Anytime I would look at her journal, she would have design of pathways in her journal. And that's very, influential of how Judy works. So it seems like your collaboration was very easy. You had a common ground to work with, so that made it a lot easier to work with.
It was interesting though too, because we were talking about, should we make this the same pathway that the dancers do when they're in the space, and we decided against it because the Lord was just moving her in a different way. But yeah, that foundation being the same really allowed both of the works to progress.
I'll open up. I guess the word that comes to me is synergy, because when you have two people that are confident in their craft, you can be open, and it allows the piece to progress. And when you have two people at that stage of their process and their thinking, you can get a lot more done. And it's more the understanding of knowing, like, I've put all my time into this, and you've put all your time into this, but we can make something better than if we were both to go do something on our own. So that was kind of the foundation that built everything else up, I'd say.
Yeah, I think too, because we've collaborated before, it was nice because you've done not only like dance for camera courses or dance for technology, whatever it's called, but also photography for dancers and things like that. So it wasn't completely foreign. And then I've also heard film terminology. So.
Yes.
Okay, so I know that both of you used props and you said what your representation for the chairs was for. But I'm interested to hear, if you want, I don't know, you might not want to share it, but what were your representation for your props? I know the scarf and the bags.
Baggage. Yeah. I was, in the starting of this piece, I wanted a sense of heaviness and like this idea that when we come into a new place where we're just really young and naive and excited and we just want to go for something, and there's just, we don't really think about what we're leaving behind or what is coming alongside us without even realize, we don't think about it. And so I used the baggage to represent the baggage in our lives, whatever that might be. And so you see the dancers, and at first the baggage is right along their side. And then as they go through the piece, they toss it away and they're like, I'm just going to be in my own excited little place. And then later they realize, oh wait, that's still there. And you have to attend to it in some capacity. And from that point, because Marion was the dancer that really, she was the first one out, and she was the one who led everybody else out as well. Because all of the other dancers ended up suffering to some degree, she was left with their baggage too. And so she was left dealing with that entire heavy load. And then from that point, she had to make a choice. And she made a choice not to ignore it, but to overcome whatever baggage was there and to come to this direction. The scarf for me, as well as for Judy, represented wisdom. It represented this piece of God's grace and the Holy Spirit working inside of us, that wisdom that when we're, again, like young and excited and we're like, yeah, let's go, and we are acting impulsively, we're like seeing that wisdom's there and we're like, oh yeah, but I really want this other thing. And I really want to go for this other thing. But then at the very end of it all, you realize, oh wait, this is what's going to take me forward. And so that's why she ended up picking up the scarf at the end. And you can see that within Judy's work as well. She said that you start here, and this is kind of when you're born, where this is a depiction of her life. So this is like when she was born, and she's flooded with this white and the yellow and with like glory and grace. And then it keeps on going, and you have sin in there, and you have earth, and you have love and compassion, all these things, until you get to a really dark spot, which is where we kind of saw Marion get today. And then right after that dark spot, there's an explosion. If we know Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, this like, oh, that's what I was supposed to do. That's it, whatever that is in that particular situation. And that's what takes us forward. And it's not that we never sin again. It's not that we never have dark times again.